a powerful mirror of the society. Through poetry, novels, essays, and drama, writers express the emotions, struggles, aspirations, and the cultural values of their people. Literary work preserves the history, traditions, and philosophical insight of a nation. They help individuals connect with their roots and understand the diversity and the unity within the nation. When readers engage with such works, they develop a deep sense of belongings and pride in their cultural heritage. Similarly, if we come to the films have emerged as one of the most influential medium of storytelling in the modern era. Cinema combines literature, visual art, music, and performance to communicate powerful message to a wide audience. Films often portray social realities, historical events, and cultural narratives that shape the national consciousness. They can highlight the values of courage, unity, justice, and the resilience that define the spirit of a nation. Media in its various forms like print media, television, and digital platforms also play a crucial role in constructing and communicating national identity. Media not only informs people about current events but also influences public opinion and the social values. Responsible media can promote awareness about cultural diversity, democratic ideals, and the national integration. At the same time, it can provide a platform for dialogue and reflection on the challenges faced by the society. In today's digital age, the role of media has become even more significant. Social media platforms allow individuals to share stories, cultural expressions, and creative ideas instantly with a global audience. While this offers new opportunities to promote national culture and heritage, it also requires critical thinking and responsible communication to ensure that the essence of the national identity is preserved and presented with authenticity. The recreation of national identity through literature, film, and media does not mean merely repeating traditional narratives, but it involves interpreting cultural values in the context of contemporary realities. Writers, filmmakers, and the media professionals have the responsibility to present balanced perspective that inspire unity, respect diversity, and promote constructive social change. If we talk about the young people engaging with literature, films, and media critically can help to develop a deeper understanding of their nation's cultural heritage and contemporary challenges. Educational institutions can play a vital role by encouraging students to explore creative expressions and cultural dialogue through these mediums. This seminar is a platform of exchange of ideas, mutual interactions where the experts from all over the globe is coming for 2 days will share their great knowledge, thereby benefiting the audience in general and our students in particular. At the end, I will say that the literature, film, and the media, they are powerful instruments for shaping and recreating national identity. When used thoughtfully, they can strengthen cultural awareness, promote social harmony, and inspire a shared vision for the future. By valuing creativity, critical thinking, and cultural responsibility, we can ensure that these mediums continue to contribute positively to the evolving identity of our nation. At the end, my best wishes for a successful seminar. Thank you very much for inviting me to interact with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring talk.
sir, for your inspiring and thought-provoking address. I now have the pleasure of inviting Professor Neetu Tandon, Principal, BSSD College, Kanpur. She is an eminent scholar whose work has been English literary studies and academic scholarship. Her insights and academic leadership have inspired generations of students and scholars. May I now request Professor Neetu Tandon to kindly address the gathering. I request
Thank you, Nidhi, for your kind invite. Distinguished dignitaries, Professor Rajesh ji from CSJMU, respected colleagues, and my dear scholars. It is a privilege to reflect with you today on a theme that is not only contemporary but deeply consequential. When we talk about national identity, we talk about knowledge, we talk about artificial intelligence, we all are interested in such things. And Professor Nidhi has brought all these things together and connected them. That is something very interesting. So let me begin with a question, one that I often pose to my own research scholars. When we say nation, what exactly are we referring to? Is it geography? Governance? Borders? Or something more subtle, more lived, more experienced? I remember what Benedict Anderson famously described the nation as imagined community. And if the nation is imagined, then I would suggest literature is the language through which this imagination becomes real. So whenever we talk about national identity, we must discuss this in what terms we are discussing this national identity. Because only borders cannot define any nation. It is through literature that a nation begins to feel itself. Its anxieties, its aspirations, its contradictions. And when we talk about India as a nation, so in the Indian tradition, knowledge has never been merely informational. It has been always experiential. That is Indian knowledge system we are discussing. So it is reflective, it is deeply ethical, and we allow others to discuss it, to come on a platform and have a critical appreciation of those discussions. So the idea of Gyan, because I feel that knowledge itself does not signify the real word Gyan that we have. So the idea of Gyan was always linked with both. That is a lived realization, not just accumulation of fact. There comes the research. In research, like most people, they are thinking that it is just the accumulation of the data, accumulation of the facts, and just summarizing them or reviewing them or talking about them. But actually, when we talk about Gyan and both, we have an open vista to discuss something more about it. When Premchand writes of rural distress, he is not merely narrating, he is shaping the ethical imagination. When Rabindranath Tagore speaks of a mind without fear, of national consciousness. What kind of individual we need in our nation? So साहित्य केवल समाज का दर्पण नहीं है, राष्ट्र की आत्मा का निर्माण करता है। ये बात तक और गहरी हो जाती है जब केदारनाथ में हिंदी पोएट सेज कि भाषा सिर्फ शब्दों का संग्रह नहीं है, भाषा एक पूरी दुनिया होती है जिसमें एक मनुष्य अपनी पहचान को जीता। इसी तरह सच्चिदानंद वात्सायन आज्ञा कहते हैं कि साहित्य हमें केवल दुनिया को देखने की दृष्टि नहीं देता, बल्कि स्वयं को पहचानने की चेतना भी देता है। So all these things, they all confirm that literature does not simply reflect the nation. It actively participates in constructing it. So nation's identity is not just a part of it. Nation's construction of a real nation, that is also being done by literature, by media, by films. So let me gently move to a question that may seem slightly uncomfortable, especially to the researchers. My question is, what happens to literary research in an age where machines can read more than we can? Traditionally, research in literature often involved engaging with a limited corpus, reading, comparing, interpreting, and presenting a review. But today, AI can perform many of these functions faster, wider, and sometimes more efficiently. So naturally, there is a question to ask, to ponder, to discuss. Does this diminish the role of the researcher? I would argue, it does not diminish it. It redefines it. It definitely redefines it because while AI can read text, it cannot inhibit context. It cannot experience history. It cannot feel the silence between the lines or the cultural weight of a metaphor. So therefore, the role of the researcher must evolve from someone who gathers knowledge to someone who interprets, questions, and reimagines the knowledge. I often tell my scholars that your work must begin where the machine stops. And where does the machine stop? At meaning, at nuance, at lived experience. This is where human scholarship begins. In this shifting landscape, our role as supervisors also transforms. We are no longer merely guiding dissertations. In fact, we are now shaping intellectual vision for our nation. We must train our scholars not only to ask, what does the text say, but more importantly, why does it say so? For whom? In what context? And what does it silence? This is also very, very important. Because research today is not about answers alone. It is about asking deeper questions. Let me now briefly share from my own experience. One of my scholars is working on digital archiving of folklore. Now, folklore is not just literature. It is collective memory in its most organic form. It exists in songs, in oral narratives, in lived traditions. So what is remarkable is that she has gone beyond conventional literary frameworks. She has learned coding and is working towards developing an application to digitally archive those traditions. First, she thought of folklore. Now her topic is digital archiving of folklore and its interpretation with a special reference to some authors chosen by her. So now reflect on this. Literature is interacting with technology. Cultural memory is entering the digital sphere. So this is not merely research. It is you can say, the preservation of national identity in the digital age. In a conference of VCs today, today only I saw a particular topic is being discussed. That is Arthik Desh Bhakti. Arthik और तकनीकी राष्ट्रवाद. So this is something new, something worth pondering, discussing. कि ये भी बातें हैं जिनके बारे में एक रिसर्चर और एक रिसर्च गाइड दोनों को सोचना चाहिए. My second scholar at present is working on neurodiversity in literature. She is exploring how literature represents minds that do not conform to conventional cognitive patterns. And this also raises a very important question. Can a nation claim inclusivity if its narrative excludes cognitive diversity? So, as through such works, literature becomes not just textual analysis, but a space for psychological insight, social sensitivity, and ethical reflection. She is deciphering how literary text presents disability studies. Writers like Anita Nair, Mugdha Kalra, Aditi, they can be compared with Western writers like Nick Walker, discuss cultural and linguistic specificity of neurodivergent expression. And gradually, we begin to understand that national identity is not built on uniformity, but on the recognition of difference. This brings me to a point I feel very strongly about. Literary research today must be unapologetically interdisciplinary, because literature does not exist in isolation, in a vacuum. It breathes through society, reflects psychological realities, engages with demographic shifts, and now increasingly interacts with technology. So when we study migration narrative, we engage with demography. In the same way, we should discuss digital humanities and other area where our research is related with. So the question no longer whether literature should be interdisciplinary. The question is whether it can remain relevant without being so. In this context, I believe we must introduce the idea of epistemic responsibility. The responsibility not just to produce knowledge, but to ensure that it is truthful, ethical, and culturally grounded. That is what our national identity demands. Michael Foucault reminds us, knowledge is never free from power. AI is trained on data, and data carries bias. If we are not careful, we risk creating a world where dominant cultures are amplified, while others are gradually erased. So therefore, responsibility lies with us to ensure that technology does not flatten the diversity, but rather enriches it. Our national identity is secure through literature, through films, through media. The right kind of representation is required. The filters are required, because whatever we are producing goes globally. So let me now return to where I began with the idea of the nation. If literature is the imagination of the nation, AI is transforming the production of knowledge. And we stand at a very delicate intellectual intersection. And perhaps the question is not, will AI change research? It already has. The deeper question is, will we allow knowledge to become merely algorithmic, or will we insist that it remains deeply human, culturally rooted, and ethically guided? So this way, I just request all of you to think about the kind of research we are doing or we are conducting. And towards the end, I will just say one thing that conclude with T.S. Eliot. Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? And today, I would extend this further. Where is the identity we risk losing if knowledge becomes detached from human experience? Because ultimately, it is about ensuring that even in an age of artificial intelligence, knowledge remains humane, identity remains rooted, and scholarship remains meaningful. So as scholars, our responsibility is not only to generate knowledge, but to ensure that knowledge remains critical, contextual, ethical, and human. And trust me, only literature, films, and media, they have the power to shape it in a desired way. Once again, I congratulate Dr. Manish and his team for thinking of this and including me to express myself. Thank you all. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you, ma'am, for your thoughtful and inspiring address. As we continue with the inaugural session, we would now invite our distinguished personality. It is my privilege to introduce. It is my privilege to introduce Venerable Karan Dogri Shobhita, a Buddhist monk and a scholar of Sanskrit and Buddhist studies. His research area focuses on Sanskrit Buddhist.
Thank you so much. I would like to take your leave and hopefully we'll be able to discuss this issue at length sometime else. Please continue with the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay. So I would like to invite our next speaker. It is my privilege to introduce Venerable Karan Dogri Shobhita, a Buddhist monk and a scholar of Sanskrit and Buddhist studies. His research focuses on Sanskrit Buddhist literature, classical Indian narratives, and ethical teachings in ancient texts. May I now invite Venerable Karan Dogri Shobhita to kindly share his thoughts with us.
Shall I start? Sir, yeah, I am audible.
So you are audible.
Okay, shall I start?